Welcome everyone. Season 4, Runners Roundtable. This is a season I'm really excited about because I get to talk to just more women, but even more so in this season, it's themed around conversations with runners. And it is all about highlighting different female runners in our community that are doing incredible things. And today I am being joined by Erica Sara. I'm not going to say what you do, but I will share that I know of you because of my friends, and I actually
Oh,
with
hi.
you because
Okay.
of my friends. But before we kind of get into that, and I tell you the story of how this necklace came into my possession, I want you to give us a breakdown of how you came to this sport of running and what else you do within the running industry.
Okay. Wow. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on here. It's always cool to get an email and be like, "Hi, you want to be my podcast?" And I'll be like, "I guess." I'm like, "I'm not that interesting, but okay, cool." But so thank you for reaching out. So I'm Erica Sara. I started running, gosh, I want to say in the year like 2003. I ran in college a little bit. I was on the crew team. I am the least athletic person you will ever meet in your entire life. And I was the worst person on the crew team in college, but I still went after it. And every day at crew team, we had to start a practice by doing a 3 mile run. And when I first started, I couldn't run for a minute. So by the end, I could obviously, do a 5K nicely. But I didn't really run again until I'd graduated college. I had been out for a few years, about 4 years, and my life fell apart. Um, and I won't go into too much detail out of respect for other people in my life, but my entire world as I existed just completely combusted. And I found myself really struggling to find a community. I didn't know what I wanted to do with the rest of my life again. I was early 30s. I was like 30, 31, I guess, maybe younger than that. I don't know. I have a terrible memory. Anyway, but and I lived in New York City on the Upper West Side. And every year I would watch the marathon run by. I lived pretty close to the marathon finish line, the New York City Marathon. Um, and I call it the marathon. I just assume everyone knows what it is, but no, New York City Marathon. And I remember every year seeing these people run by and being like, holy crap. Like you could tell in their faces, there were stories involved. There was motivation, there was inspiration. Like each of those runners had a different story, a different reason for being out there. And I remember when my life was falling apart, I said to myself, if I could do that, I could get through this. If I could run that marathon, I can get through this impossible time in my life. So I started running, and New York Road Runners, they put on the New York City Marathon. They actually have a 9+1 program where if you sign up for 9 races and then you volunteer at one, you automatically get an entry to the marathon. So I did that. My first race it was like a Father's Day race. The race against prostate cancer, which is great timing because my dad had actually just gone through prostate cancer and survived. And then I just became hooked, and my entire life as I knew it changed. My community changed. All of a sudden, I was meeting runners every weekend. Sorry, I'm going to get up and turn off a machine in my studio while I hear it buzzing in back of me. So I'm walking around my studio, turning things off. But my life as I knew it changed. My friends changed. All of a sudden, I was meeting people for runs all the time. And runners were like this amazing, inclusive community where you'd meet someone new and they'd like, hey, let's just go on a run. And it didn't matter. Like, I remember going on, runs with people who were so much faster or so much slower, and it didn't matter. And so around the same time, I told you my whole life combusted. I also left my corporate job in fashion America, my fashion job in corporate America. And from the outside, it was like one of those jobs people thought were, amazing and glamorous. And I sat, front row of fashion shows, and I got to go to Italy and go meet with designers and all that fun stuff. And I came home crying every day and was miserable. It was just not what I wanted in my life. And so I went back to school for nutrition. Completely random, I know. I went to NYU to get my master's in nutrition. And during that, I decided I didn't really want to go out and party in New York City. I just wanted to sit at home and chill out. So I started making jewelry. And I started making jewelry to celebrate my races. So like I'd run a 5K and I'd make myself a 5K necklace. And then people started asking me about the pieces that I started making. And I was like, oh yeah, I made it. And they would want to buy one. Or someone would be training for their first marathon and they'd be like, oh, can you make this logo? And I couldn't because I didn't have the license, but I would do something. I would come up with some other thing to create a piece to celebrate their races. And it just became a thing. And, I was in school for nutrition, getting my master's. And at the same time, I taught myself how to build a website, and I got a camera and taught myself photography and just everything. And I just started selling pieces. And then Exhale Spa in New York City contacted me. They wanted to do a trunk show. And I went to do a trunk show with them, and Allie Allie Feller from Allie on the Run. We knew each other from the running community. We were friends, and she stopped by to say hi. She took a picture, posted on her blog. Fitness Magazine saw it, and they reached out to me and said, would you like to design a piece for our magazine? And I was like, yeah. So I realized that it could become a career, and I dropped out of my master's program. I dropped out of my internship at NYU. It's like the residency of like dietitians. So I dropped out of that, and I just built my business, and it just sort of exploded from there. I ended up actually through that race. So they ended up asking me to do the Fitness More half. At that time, it was the biggest or women's only half marathon in the country. And I did the necklace for that race. They gave me a booth at the expo. And through that, I actually ended up meeting Dina Castor. She wore my jewelry after that. And then also David and Jane Monty. And at the time, the Montys were they were husband and wife duo who are amazing. And they were the people who, for New York Road Runners, would host the elite athletes. So like New York Road Runners would have a race, they'd bring the elite athletes in for a race. And David and Jane were responsible for making sure they had everything they needed, from hotel rooms to meals to coordinating, rides to the race and everything. So Jane, I met at the expo there, and she's like, oh, I love this. We have to do something for some of the other races. And from there, I created this partnership with New York Road Runners, the marathon, for a few years. At that time, Tiffany's was the jewelry designer, and they were not pleased because they had the license and I didn't. So that ended after a few years. But 2 years ago, Tiffany's actually no longer had the New York City Marathon license for the jewelry. And so they reached out and contacted me. And now I am the official designer of the jewelry. So it's a long story. Well, it's a really long story. I tried to make it short. Hope I didn't bore anyone too much, but
no, that's a great story. I think you left out one important detail. What's the name of your brand?
Oh, sorry. Erica Sara. Erica Sara Designs. Really easy, really simple to remember my name, because at the time when I was starting a business, it was much easier, and it still is, to create a business in your own name than a DBA, doing business as. And I didn't want to add any more hoops. So Erica Sara Designs, super easy, super simple.
I love that. I love that entire story, because I feel like I especially love stories of people who came to running later in life, or who are like, yeah, I'm normal. I'm an average, quote unquote, normal, quote unquote, average runner, because I feel like within the running industry, everyone thinks that you love running, or at least for me, everyone's like, you love it. I'm like, no, actually it really sucks. But also, I didn't start running. People see how I run today, and they assume that's how it's always been. And it's like, no, I actually started running in my late 20s. And that's kind of when I got hooked. So it's just a beautiful reminder that you can come to the sport whenever, and you can start at whatever age, at whatever pace. It's here for you.
Yeah.
I love that community is such a central theme for you with all of this. How has your definition of community, or how has your participation in community changed as you have grown as a businesswoman within the running industry?
It's a really interesting question. No one's ever asked me that. It's a hard one to answer because it is so ingrained in my life. So like business versus personal. I met my husband at a race. And our entire life at that time was around races. He was the executive producer of Runner's World at the time, and he was running the Fifth Avenue Mile, and I was there spectating, and we met. And so our life, and now he works with me at Erica Sara. And so our life is really just like, I guess it was always part of our community, right? Like in New York, like that became everything I did, running, whether it were the people that I hung out with, or the people that I ran with, or my weekends were centered around running. And then I met my husband through running. And then, I don't know, it's really hard to separate the business from the personal for me, community wise. Especially now that, and I guess I want to, I love that, it's such a big part of our life as a family, even that I love that business and community are sort of, one entity. I love that I know these people through social media, let's say, that I've never even met in person. And when I'll be at the expo this year, I consider them my running community, but they're like, oh, I can't wait to meet you at the expo. It's a really weird, I don't know, it's a weird dynamic. I consider a lot of customers, my friends, they're customers I've had for years that have come back year after year or occasion after occasion. And, and I know now some of them came to me through running, but now I know like this woman, Jennifer, like she just had a grandchild and I made sure, I reached out and like, oh, and how's your grandkid? And she sends me pictures of her grandchildren. And I don't know, it's just, I'm going off in tangents, I know, but I feel like anything I've seen within the running community, even within businesses within the running community, there is a very blurry line between personal and business.
Yeah. I find that when you are in business by yourself, that it's really easy for everything to be very blurred because you are the product and you are the brand, right? Like it's a little bit of it all. But what I'm hearing you say more than anything else is that there's a fluidity, right? Like there's a fluidity of kind of moving in through these different roles, different communities in a way that really supports you. So it's not like you have to be like, all right, let me put my designer hat on and be present. Like it's all you. It's all you. And I think that that's probably something that helps you show up even better with everyone because it is you. They're getting you. So I'm curious, with all of that, right? What is the creative process like for you? If it's you, the business owner, but then also you, the runner, but then you with all the community, like I feel like, are you inundated with ideas?
They don't stop. Brain hurts at all times. Yeah, it's a nonstop thing. I've always been a very creative person. Like I've always, when I was little, I wanted to be a fashion designer. That was back when like, the fashion designers, like everyone knew who they were and like supermodels were the thing. And I lived in New York and I went to fashion shows and whatnot. So I've always wanted to be in fashion and my brain has always been creative. And it's weird translating it into the running world because you don't think of athletics as, fashionable, but that's completely obviously not anymore. It used to be. Now there's like, fashion everywhere for runners, which is awesome. But basically like, so my collections, I like to say that they're obviously not just running based and we're, you're a running podcast. So we're really focusing on that. But I started my designs, like I said, when I was going through a really rough time in my life and they've evolved as I've evolved. So I try to represent every part of a woman. I believe like as women, we aren't just in quotes, one thing, we can be runners, we can be mothers, we can be daughters, we can be best friends, we can be career women. We are everything. We can't do everything at the same time, but we can be anything. And so you cannot do everything at the same time, women, please.
Yes,
don't even
please, let's listen to that.
It's not worth it. But so I try to represent that in my jewelry. And so as I'm going through my life, like different things pop up, like when I had my first child, Emmett, I saw his footprints on like the little birth card, in the hospital. Like, okay, I have to engrave his footprints. Or I remember like there's the first time I saw his face, like in this picture, I'm like, I have to engrave that. So, my footprint collection came out. My portrait collection came out. So, it just evolves. And, the race bib collection, I don't even remember how that came about. I was just like thinking about like, what's one thing that like, that runners, like they have on race day and then, they don't have again, whatever it is. And like, how can I represent races in different creative ways? And so I was like, oh my gosh, race bibs. I love race bibs. It's always fun to collect them. Like, my husband and I have piles of them. Like, how do we translate that into something you can wear every day that still looks fashionable and that's a great conversation piece? Because us runners, we like to talk about our races. So if you're wearing a cool necklace and someone's like, hey, what does that say? You get to talk all about that race and all about your running. And then I just go with it. There are days where I do not have capacity to create something new, and yet I can't get it out of my head. And I rush into my studio in the minute the kids are asleep and I get it out there and I show it to my husband and I'm like, do I have something? Do I not have something? And and then I photograph it, and sometimes it blows up and sometimes it doesn't. But if I have an idea, like, it has to happen, because otherwise I will go crazy thinking about it, and they don't stop. So yes.
Yeah, the creative process is one that I feel like creative people, you become almost like a slave to the creativity, right? Like you really can't shut it off or turn it off. And I've shared this before where it's like, for me, it can be really frustrating because it's taken away sleep time for me whenever I'm in creator mode. It's like it's taken, my kids are older, so it's a little bit easier to be like, okay, kids, bye. Like I've got to go do this now, because if I don't, it's going to kind of drive me crazy. So can you walk us through your process, like the actual physical process of creation? Because I'm assuming you make every piece yourself. Is this like, you are like, what I'm wearing on my neck, and I'll go into the story of how I have this. What I'm wearing on my neck was made by your hands?
Yes. So, so the chains, I no longer make every single one myself, because that's crazy. I do work with specific, I mean, actually, oh my gosh, for the Marathon Expo, I ran, like, my inventory is a little off, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need like an extra 1,000 chains. So yes, I will be hand assembling and soldering every chain myself for the expo. Really excited about that. But yeah, so like the piece that you made, let me see if I have a sheet of silver. Sorry, I might have a sheet of silver right here. I don't. Okay, well, I cut, you see my butt in your screen. I get like a sheet of silver. I order them around 3 inches by 4 inches at a time, but I order like stacks at a time. Like I'm expecting about 20 sheets of silver to show up at my door today. And then I go ahead and cut out. See, these are more graham crackers coming up. Cut out the pieces of shapes. I'm trying to think. I have a bunch of other ones right here. Hold on, I'll grab some. Here we go. Like here's a run token piece that I cut out this morning. I don't know if you can see it. My camera's little. And then I'm not wearing glasses, so this is a little run neck. This will be a run necklace. So anyway, I cut out the piece, and then I I polish it up here. I've got polishing machines, sanding machines, sand it down. If it's sterling silver, I go ahead and engrave it right away. For the piece that you have, the vermeil, I don't do the plating in-house. For 2 reasons. Number one, it can involve toxic chemicals. And although I try to work with a factory who uses as little of that as possible, I just don't want that in my house. But also, I'm not an expert at plating, and I'm never going to pretend to be. And so I'd rather work with the best plater in the country who can plate a necklace that my running customers can wear forever, and I don't have to worry about it rubbing off. So like when you go buy gold plated at a store and it rubs off right away, that's not the kind of plating we do. We do like thick electroplated, like that gold will stay. So, so then I send those off to my plater, and about 2 weeks later they come back, and then I engrave them, if they need engraving. And then, yeah, so I mean, it just depends on the piece. Some pieces get engraved, some pieces don't. Some people it's just, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I know about you, because I feel like in my little group of friends, my little, not little, but my group of running ladies, you are, I think like a superstar. There was at the New York Mini, someone was like, I saw her, and they took a picture with you and everything. And then I had, earlier this summer, I was a part of a Lululemon event, and I was able to create a team for a relay here. I'm in Miami, Florida. So a relay of 5 women, or my team was 5 women. So shout out to Emily, Meredith, Marion, Lydia, and myself, because I'm the 5th woman. So shout out to them. And we did this whole event. It was 16 miles from one part of Miami to Miami Beach. And the whole premise of that was for me to just pick women that inspired me and women that I wanted to share this experience with. And I didn't really think about it. I was just like, these are women I like to run with. I like to talk to them, like that. Let's do this. We've shared lots of miles together. And then over the summer, I spent the summer on the West Coast. So I did not have my running ladies because I was just somewhere else in the state. when I came back, it wasn't last week, but 2 weeks ago, we had a long run and they're like, we have something for you. And I said, oh no, I'm very awkward when it comes to getting gifts and just praise. I'm just awkward. Like I'm just really, really awkward with it. And they gave me one of your necklaces. And I was like, oh my God. And they're like, look at it. It's got a little rainbow on one side because our Lululemon team was Team Rainbow, because we all just had different colors. And I wanted to celebrate each of our personalities. And we all were able to pick out whatever clothes we wanted to wear and just celebrate being us. They're like, look at the back. Oh, I mean, graham crackers. I want you to know that I buy, and I'm sure you've heard this before, like in bulk graham crackers. I will go to BJ's. I will go to our local supermarket. If they have it on sale, I am buying it in bulk. So when I saw that, it just makes me laugh because I saw that and it feels silly, but it's not. But I felt so seen as a runner. I'm like, yes, graham crackers. We get
Thank you for telling it. I had no idea. So like I used to be of the thought, like I used to run hungry, what's called like run fasted. And I'm like, okay, I feel like crap as I get older. And then I was introduced to Megan and I was like, okay, I could try this. I like graham crackers. And I'm like, oh my gosh, wait, so much so that my husband, he's run, gosh, I don't even know how many marathons, almost 100 marathons. Like he's run many, many, many races. And now I have him eating graham crackers before long runs. Like he keeps them in his truck. If he drives to like a running spot, there's graham crackers in the door. I crack up.
Yeah, I have my plastic container and listen, y'all, that you haven't heard this story before, but I did the London Marathon in April and I made sure to pack graham crackers because I was not sure whether they sold graham crackers over there. So it was one day that we went to the Nature Museum in London and I had my little bag of graham crackers. So to see the graham cracker on the necklace, it just made me giggle because I'm such a fan. I really am. I'm just such a lover of graham crackers. So that was kind of my story. So again, like I had heard of you because they would tell me about you and then they gave me the necklace and I was very much so. The first question was, can I wear this when I work out? Like that's kind of, the necklaces y'all can see if you're watching this video, there's two necklaces on. One of them is a crescent moon and the other one's one of Erica Sara's necklaces. And I know that with certain jewelry, it cannot hold up to running and sweating. And as of this recording, I want you all to know I wore it for an 18-mile run and it was fine. I shower and clean it that way and it's totally fine. And I just love like this full circle moment of here's something that was gifted to me by people that I adore and respect and just cherish as runners. And now I'm actually able to talk to you to be like, hey, I have something that's your creation that was bought by people, like
it's like I was actually at a coffee shop with a friend the other day and this girl comes up to me. She's like, you're a jewelry designer. And I was like, yeah. And my friend was cracking up and she's like, oh, I have some of your pieces. I'm a runner. And I'm like, hi. And she goes to her friend, this is Erica Sara, the famous jewelry designer. And I'm like, no. Like I'm like wearing pajamas and fanny pack on. I was like, no. Like we're all just people. We're all just doing our thing, like I don't want to say none of us are special. We're all special, like we're all just doing our thing. And so the funny thing is what you said about the wearing it in the shower. So I have to say this because it's such a number one question. And I'm so bad at the marketing part of that because I'm not so a lot of jewelry you see out there by some businesses these days are like, they're influencer based businesses, right? It's like an influencer who all of a sudden's like, oh, I can sell jewelry. That's not me. Like I've been making jewelry, for 14 years. I've always been in the fashion industry. I've actually started making jewelry when I was like 10 years old. I understand metalsmithing. I know how to solder and use metals, and I understand the melting point of each different metal and all that stuff, all that good stuff. And the whole, like, can I wear it to sweat is a complete marketing gimmick. So gold is always waterproof. Gold by nature, you can wear to sweat, always. Silver, you can't. So like if you see those businesses that are like, oh, sweat-proof jewelry, you notice that they always promote gold jewelry because silver tarnishes no matter what. It is just science. And if someone tells you their silver doesn't tarnish, it means that they have a very, very thick coating of something on top of it that's electroplated. But that will wear off over time. And that is just a fact. Doesn't matter how expensive the jewelry is, it will tarnish over time, but unless you take care of it. So silver jewelry, like people will wear my silver jewelry to sweat. So I'm like, yeah, you can wear it but then they'll take it off to shower. And I'm like, no. Like you need to clean it. Like, so if you wear a piece of silver on a run, wear it in the shower, get it wet, get soap on it, and then dry it off and it'll look great. So it's just interesting to me. Gold. So my gold pieces, like my gold fill pieces that I engrave, I actually add an extra really thick layer onto it. So most gold fill pieces don't have that, but because I engrave it and I'm taking some of the gold off, mine is like double gold layers. And they'll last forever. Like, I have friends who have worn some necklaces. My friend Crystal just did a 100-mile race in a Vermeil lightning bolt necklace. And she's like, looks good as new, so anyway, but yes, the whole sweat proof thing, that's a marketing gimmick.
Thank you for sharing that, because now like I'm holding a pair of my earrings because I'm like, this summer they're silver earrings and they've tarnished over the summer, and it's a combination of, yes, sweating, and even though I would shower with them, we were also, where we were this past summer was on an island, right? We're on the west coast of Florida. So the air is saltier. So I'm like, these poor earrings didn't stand a chance because it's salt on top of salt on top of salt.
You get a silver polish really super easy. I do include polishing cloths in every single one of my orders. Not just one in order, but like if you order 5 pieces, you get 5 polishing cloths. But silver is so easy to clean. And so like you just stick it in a silver polish, rinse it off, and you're good to go. But yeah, silver is going to tarnish. Sometimes quicker than others. You can wear a silver piece for a year and it won't tarnish, and then it does. Or you can wear a silver piece, and I have a bracelet I actually just took off last week, but I wore it through the entire summer. I wore it in an ocean, I wore it in the swimming pool, I wore it everywhere, and it's still completely tarnish free. Because I wore it in the shower, but it depends. Different climates, different people's skin. Anyway, I could talk about science forever.
I love it. I love it. So I'm going to, I love all of that, because marketing is such a challenging one, especially when you are, again, like the brand, the face, the product, all of it. It's really hard. I can imagine that what you want to do is create beautiful pieces for people to have, and not so much have to like sit down and explain to people the science, even though I'm sure you enjoy it, right? It's just, but it's still like that's
videos about it.
So, I love that, because that was my very first question was, can I wear it? And then one of my friends, she emailed you and she reached out to you and was like, can she wear it while sweating? And as soon as she told me yes, I'm like, all right, this baby's coming on, and it's not coming off. I took it off, I think, since I've had it over the past 2 weeks, maybe once because I got a massage. But other than that, it's been on. Looks great. It's fine. I don't feel it when I'm running. It's not moving around. Sometimes jewelry can become a little cumbersome, but it's not. So I'm going to kind of like pivot a little bit, because I'm curious, as I was doing my research, I was curious, how does it feel to retire pieces? Because I saw that like the Run ring was retired, and I was just wondering, did you mourn or grieve that? Like, or were you just like, okay, cool, you've had your time in the sun, it's time to move on?
Yeah, it's really hard. I know that when I retire certain pieces that are very popular, it disappoints people. And that's why I'll do like, a last call kind of thing. I don't have a trouble. I rarely retire pieces. I retire pieces. Like I said, I constructed my business in a way that I wouldn't have to retire pieces. Like I keep metal in stock, things like that. And I don't, I engrave to order. So I don't have to I don't make 100 of a piece and hope 100 sell, when it came to the run ring, it's a really, really cumbersome piece to make. And as my business grew, people were ordering it as gifts. And so I do have ring sizing information on my website. I use a industry regulated stainless steel mandrels the size of every single ring. And yet some man might grab his wife's ring and then measure it and think that he has the measurement. He orders a ring from me and then it's the wrong size. And then I have to, now I know that that's like, it doesn't look like a big deal, but you get like 10 of those a week and you're a like solo business person and you're also trying to raise 2 young kids and manage everything else. Like it's really hard to manage it. And so the run ring just, I didn't have the capacity to do it anymore. Like, I'll be really honest. I told you, I'm honest. I do not blow smoke up anyone's, you know what? And I don't know how to market anything. I'm real. So the fact is, if I retire something, chances are either material wise, like it's a material I couldn't get anymore, or it just, I just didn't physically want to do it anymore. It was just too much of like mental energy to keep pursuing it when there were so many other things taking my energy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Listen, I have, the older I get, the more I try to live by the motto of if it's fun and enjoyable, we're going to add it. If it's not, we're going to subtract it. And I'm all about like, okay, so where do we need to create ease? And if that's something that wasn't creating ease within the business, it's okay to say goodbye, right? Like it's okay to let that have its moment in the light. I was just curious if there's ever a feeling of like, oh, that product, it's done, it's gone. Or if you're just like, thank goodness I don't have to do it anymore. Like on like it, again, I can imagine it just opens up time for you to do other things and pursue other creations.
Yeah. And also like I'm going to sound a little hippy dippy for a second, so excuse me, but like I do believe that the energy you put into it, if you're making something handmade and you're sending it out into the world, the energy you put into it is what you put out into the world. And so if I am starting to resent making this piece over and over and over because it's taking away from other things, and I can't put that in the world anymore. Like, I do like, when people write, they'll place orders and they'll write a story, in the comments, like, this is what this order means. Like, I actually read each one of those stories and I actually channel it when I'm engraving or when I'm soldering. And like, so, it's the energy I put into it. And so if it's just, I don't know. I know in some ways it makes me a lesser of a businesswoman. I have a business degree, so I know what I'm doing, but like, I can't let the top line always be what dictates what I put out in the world. Like, that's not the kind of person I aim to be in the world. So it's just sort of how it all pans out.
Yeah. And I don't think that makes you a quote unquote bad businesswoman. I think it makes you a smart one when you're thinking about longevity, right? Because if making that ring is something that's going to lead to burnout or lead to resentment, it's going to end up taking you down a path where you are maybe no longer going to want to run this business, right? Like it is. And I mean, hey, I'm someone who believes in energetics as well. And it's that, like, I know for myself, the minute I start to resent doing something, that's when I need to end it. Like that's that first, like if I'm going somewhere or doing something and the first thought is, oh, I don't want to be here, or I don't want to do this. That's that indication of, okay, it's time to start planning your exit from this situation, from whatever it is that's going on, because then that does go out to everybody else. And that is what everyone else is going to pick up from you. It may be subtle at first, but then that subtlety, that little whisper will turn into a yell. And then all of a sudden, everything else that you've built it's the foundation is going to start to crack. So I appreciate your honesty in that response, because to everything you've said, it's you doing this and it's you creating this and it's you putting your heart into these pieces and putting your heart into every aspect of the business. And if something is not helping you thrive emotionally, right? Like that, I'm sorry, the money, this is me, y'all, coming from an incredibly privileged position to say this, of like, the money is moot if you're not happy, right?
Yeah.
Like,
It's time away from my kids, right? Like in that ring, it's a really difficult ring to make. And I don't believe in charging an exorbitant amount of money. And so it's time away from my kids. It's time, like it just became a very difficult thing to keep pursuing, especially with people being like, oh, I ordered the wrong size. And like, you guys, I make every single one to order.
Yeah. And I
Now,
think
like,
And I think that's part of it too, right? Where people don't really realize it, or there's just like not a solid awareness of that. And listen, I am someone, and I'm like messing with my rings right now because of that same reason, where I've ordered things online and I've printed out the little tape and it tells me what my ring size should be. And yet once I get them, they're like, I mean, I have 4 rings on this finger and I have the tightest 2 on top because the
yeah.
bottom 2, yeah, they're too loose. And it's,
And I have a ring sizer, and I didn't pay attention. The last ring I made for myself for my birthday, I completely mismeasured my finger. Like I was just half asleep, and it's 2 sizes too big.
yeah,
But at the bottom, and I'm like, whatever. I'm just,
yeah. I'm like, as long as I can lock them in with something else, they're fine. Like the meaning is there, the intention is there. Okay. I want to go back to something you shared, and I'm not asking you to share more. I'm asking for the lesson. So you mentioned how your life combusted, everything pivoted and changed.
Mhm.
And I'm curious, as you reflect back, what are the lessons that you get out of that when it comes to, because when I hear you speak, I'm like, oh, here's someone who took a chance on herself.
Mhm.
What are the
Yeah.
lessons with that? And just the importance of pivoting and being willing to change, because I'm sure you had the option to just keep grinding it out how it was, and yet you chose a different path.
Yeah, I wouldn't have survived grinding it. So the option, I wouldn't have survived. Like I was crying every night on my bathroom floor. So there's definitely a few lessons. Um, and one I learned myself, and one I've always been told, but I think it's important to tell people if they haven't been told this. So one of them is that it really is never too late. It's
Mm.
never too late to change your path. Uh, I started this business, gosh, 13 years ago. I'm I'm almost 46, so I don't know, do the math, early 30s, whatever it was. But by then I did have like this really, really established career. At a very well, a multi-billion-dollar fashion company, and I was on the rise, and I was a star there. And I was making mad money, and I could have kept going. And people were shocked when I was like, I'm done. Like I can't. Um, and I make a whole lot less than I made then. And working for yourself is a huge struggle. But I'm happier than I've ever been. And I took a chance on myself. But it's not too late. I met my husband in my late 30s. I had my first kid in my late 30s, my second when I was 40. It's not too late. It's never too late to turn your life around. It's going to sound so cheesy, but YOLO, you really only get one life to live. And if you don't take charge of it at whatever point you're in, then it's going to be too late. But it's never too late. So, you could say that I'm coming from a place of privilege and whatnot, because I was able to do that, but I really wasn't. I worked my butt off. I worked full-time jobs through college. I supported myself. I didn't leave my career in fashion with like a mom and dad, handing me money. I really, I hate to use the word self-made because it makes me sound bigger than I am, but like, I paid for my own car in college. I went on a full academic scholarship, and anyway, and then I worked my butt off to get to where I am. So anyway, the point is, it isn't too late. But the other thing is, you really can do, and this was something my parents always told me, and I'm very grateful for them. But you really can do anything. Like you can, like it's just a fact. Now, like I said before, you can't do everything. Okay. Like there's only so many hours a day. And so only so many mitochondria in each of your cells that has the energy to do it. But you really can do anything. And if you don't know how to do it, you can sit down and figure it out. And you have to have the faith in yourself to do it. And there are going to be times where you don't have the faith, and you put that out into the world, and somehow the universe comes back and tells you you're fine, you're going to keep going. Can't tell you how many times it's happened where I'm like, my God, I can't keep doing this, I'm exhausted, or like sales are crappy in the last few days or last month, and then the next day like something big happens, and it's like the universe saying, hey, you're okay, keep going. but you can do it. And not just like you can do it, but expect that you're going to do it. Like my parents always told me, I remember like growing up, like they expected straight A's. And it wasn't like this ridiculous thing. It was just like, but we know you're smart and we know you can do it. So just do it, and it wasn't even a pressure thing. Like it just do it. That's what's in you. And so anyway, whatever it is that you want to do, it is within you. Take the risk, take smart risks. Don't do something ridiculous. You still have bills to pay and insurance and stuff like that. But there is a way for it to happen and a way for you to, there's always a way to make things better and to change your life. Whether it's through action or just through thought. So did that make sense?
That made sense. And you answered, I was going to ask you, like, what words of advice do you have for business owners? And I think you answered it there. So I'm going to ask you a different question, because I find, again, with myself, with what I'm doing, there is no template. Like no one in my family has ever done anything that I'm doing. So when I hear you say like, oh, sit down and figure it out, what comes to mind for me is like, oh my God, this being a solo business that like the first in her family to do things this way, there is so much figuring out. Like I've never, again, like my own backstory was, I'm first generation American and I come from Latin America. And my parents coming here, like many first generation Americans, it was very much so education. You need to go to school. You need to get your education. You need to get your education.
Right? You can't take away education. That's, I'm from, yeah.
Yeah. So I did all the education. I want people to know that I did all the education. I have a bachelor's degree. I have 2 master's degrees. Like I went full in on the education. And all that stuff is wonderful. And it's padding. I call it padding. Like if I ever decide to walk away from what I do now, I've got that padding. I can fall back on it. And yet that stuff didn't really prepare me for what I'm doing now.
Yes,
right?
It did. No, it did.
No, it did, but not in like a very.
It taught you how to figure things out. It taught you how to learn. And that's what you're doing right now. The education, it might be like one-to-one, but it taught you how to learn so that when you have to go out into the world and figure it out, you know how to do that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like I tell people, one of my degrees or what I feel like I've lived so many lifetimes in this one lifetime in terms of like careers. So I always tell people, I'm like, well, I thought I was going to be a mental health therapist. Like that's what I wanted to be, a marriage and family therapist. Like that's what I wanted to be. And on those days where I do get down on myself of like, oh, I didn't do it, like I didn't finish it. I'm like, but wait, I use my words and I talk and I teach and I try to empower through words. And it's like, okay, but that's exactly what therapy is, minus all the paperwork and Medicaid, Medicare, like all of that stuff. So it is really interesting. So I just want to thank you for that reframe, because again, like as the first to do this, there isn't anyone within my family that I can turn to, that I can be like, hey, so when you were building your business, like, how did you figure out your taxes? Or how did you, things like.
Of course, would you like to hear about all the mistakes I made with that 10 years ago? So,
so it's
you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't pay any taxes and I owe how much?
Yeah. I was trying to explain to my kids the other day, like they were asking me something and I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like as a small business, everything the business makes is technically a profit for me. So like, it's weird, but then I still have expenses, but not all expenses are deducted, like it's so interesting. So so that's what that kind of was going to be my question in terms of like, as you're navigating how to be a business owner, and as you pivot along the way, example with the run ring, that's a pivot in your business. How are you figuring it out? What is your process for figuring out what to do next?
Okay, well, so I have a few things. Number one, the internet is a beautiful place. Don't believe everything you read, but it could get you somewhere. Number two, so because the world we live in now, there are so many solopreneurs, right? Like there are all these entrepreneurs that are looking to share or whatever. Just like a family, a mom needs her village, just like a runner needs her community. Solopreneurs need their community and find your community. So a perfect example is Sarah Marie from Sarah Marie Designs.
Mhm.
We have known each other for, oh my gosh, so around 10 years. I remember we heard of each other years ago. I remember she like did this really cool picture a long time ago. I'm like, I have to engrave that. It's so cool. I reached out to her. We've been friends ever since. She's even come and stayed at our house. Like we talk very often. You know, if I'm having a bad business day, I text her. If I'm having a good business day, I text her. Like, and we actually have a bi-weekly meeting. Every other week we have on the calendar where we like it's on the calendar and it's set, and so when I do a walk during it and she does whatever she's doing and we go over a list of things that are on our plate, and this is what we accomplished since last time, this is what we need advice on. We hold each other accountable. If she has a problem, let's say like with her website, she'll send me a text and say, hey, you know, this happened, do you know what happened? And I'll often go to my husband because he's the tech guy and he knows her already, so he'll help her out. But you find your community and you talk it out. You know, just the other day someone sent me a message and they're like, hey, you know, I'm having problems with my website. I know we do the same kind of website. Do you know what it might be? And then we started talking about her possibly moving her website. I'm like, you know what? Let's get on my calendar next week, and we'll spend like 20 minutes on the phone talking it out. I think that there's a community out there, and I think that the more that you're willing to help other people, the more successful you're going to be in your own life and your own happiness. We always tell my kids, like, when you do something nice for someone, how does it make you feel? And so, you know, you do this for other people. I think people are afraid to ask other people for help or for advice, but the worst thing they can say is no. But they probably will say yes, because it's just like this really cool, anyway, I'm looking for a word. It's like a science word and it's not kind of my brain, but anyway, a symbiosis, like a symbiotic relationship kind of thing. Anyway, so community, it's about community. It's just, oh, and my husband, he's really freaking smart. So he like when I have a question or I want to look at things in a different way, I ask him, and he just has this way of looking at things in a very different way. But find your people. That's it. It's finding your people, right? Just
Find your people. That's such a big theme for you, right? Find your people on the run, in the running community, and then as a business person within the running community, finding your people there too. And I think, again, listening to you speak, what I love so much about what you shared is this very strong reminder that other women are not your competition.
No, they're not your competition. There is enough for all of us in this world. We are not in competition. We don't have to be in competition. That is something, I don't know, society set up for us a long time ago, and it's a whole load of BS. We're not.
It's the worst. And I know it's hard. It's hard. I've had, if she ever listens to this podcast, she'll know, but if she doesn't, it's fine. One of the things I do is I also teach yoga, and this must have been last summer where one of my fellow friend yoga teachers, she sent me a message with, hey, do you have a sequence for warming people up before a 5K? And when I saw the message, my initial response was, I'm not going to give her my sequence. What? And then afterwards, I remembered it's just a pose, right? Like these are just shapes in the body. What am I getting so protective over? And sure enough, I have two sequences on my phone. They're like just 10-minute. One, if you can get on the floor, and another one, if you have to do everything standing. So I sent both of them to her, and I'm like, here you go. Good luck. And it was beautiful. It made me feel amazing, because it was just like, it was one of those things where I'm like, what am I even holding on to? Like, why does it matter if there's enough for everyone, one, but also if that opportunity came to her and not me, I'm okay with that, because that just means that there's something else out there for me, right? Like, and it's that requires a lot of trust and a lot of awareness as well. But so I just love what you shared, because it's that reminder of there are people in this community who want to support you, but either they don't because they don't know if you'd be okay with it. They don't know if they don't know if you would receive any requests as like, oh, what are they doing? And again, I share that story because that my initial reaction was like, I'm not going to share it. And it was quick. It was literally, I'm not going to share it. And then a minute later, just telling myself like, what's the big deal? Who cares? Like, who cares?
Yeah.
So I love that. I'm going to pivot real quick.
Don't worry.
Because I saw something the other day on your Instagram account where you talked about your changing body and perimenopause. I know. I'm sorry. I'm doing this.
No, go
I
for it.
saw your face. I'm
I'm
sorry.
Conversation. I'm moaning at that. I'm like, oh gosh, it sucks. No.
Okay. I was going to say, because yeah. So listen, I have become, I love getting older because I find that I just care less, right? Like, I'm just like, you know what, who cares? But I've recognized about myself is that the older I get, the angrier I've become about certain things when it comes to women. And I'll preface this that it all started because I took a menopause for athletes, like a menopausal athlete course. And in that course, I'm absorbing all this information. And as the course is going on, I'm just getting angrier and angrier because I cannot understand how half the population of the world is in a female body, and we're not talking about any of this. As soon as I finished the course, I went up to my husband and I apologized to him for what the next 10 to 15 years of our lives are going to look like. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm just apologizing in advance. It's not going to be pretty. I'm sorry. But it just blew my mind. So when I saw that you posted it, I'm like, yes, can we get more? Maybe I'm the only one, but I'm like, can we get more content about this? Because again, for myself, I did this course. And then over the last year or so, my hair is thinning.
I'm looking, I'm like, oh, look at my line. My hair's coming out.
That's why I put my hair in a half ponytail, because then it makes it feel like there's some body going on, because I've lost it. And it's just, I find it again so fascinating, but it angers me because I'm like, why aren't we talking about this? Why are we feeling like we need to move through this, being either confused as to what's happening in our bodies, confused as what's happening like with us emotionally, when if we just talk about it, there's going to be, the minute I said my hair is thinning to someone, they're like, yeah, hey, welcome to the club. I'm like, oh, so here I am thinking there was like something wrong.
So it drives me nuts. And for me, it took a while to start talking about it because people were like, oh, you're a brand. No one wants to know about that. Like, why would someone buy jewelry if someone, like, if you're talking about, and I'm like, okay, I give up, because honestly, women need to talk about this. Like, there are so many things that I learned. This is sort of a caveat, but not really. Like, when I was trying to get pregnant with my daughter, I was having major trouble and I didn't know what was wrong. And I turned out I had Asherman syndrome. But if I hadn't, that's where your uterus seals up because of all the scarring from previous pregnancies. And if I hadn't put that out there to certain friends, I would have never known, because a friend who'd been diagnosed with it is one who taught me. So it's the same thing with this, with the perimenopause. So I'm 45, almost 46. And 2 years ago, I started going insane. Like, I'm always a little wacky, but I mean, like, having these bursts of anger where my kids were afraid of me. I mean, I try not to cry now, because looking back, I mean, what they must have been going through, going and sitting in my car and crying in the garage because I didn't want everyone to see what a mess I was. Like, it was awful. And my husband started tracking it. And he's like, I think it's hormonal because it's happening at certain times during the month, but it didn't really coincide with a period. Like, it wasn't like normal PMS. And so I went to the doctor, and then she still didn't call it perimenopause. Like, and I like had to ask her, like, can you test my ovaries? Like, I just need a better understanding of where I am. And what angers me is that, like, now that I'm mid 40s and I'm in it, and I am being destroyed by it. I'm not going to lie. It's pretty hard. It's been really, really rough. There was a point where they thought I had a brain tumor. I had to get brain scans because I couldn't, like, I couldn't function at all. Like I was I was shutting down nonstop. And still to this day, like, I wish when we're in our 20s, or like every year you go to the gynecologist and you get this checkup, and I wish that they would start screening you for certain symptoms and tell you what to expect, and also tell you should be weight training now. If you weight train now, no one told me. So now in my mid-40s, I hate weight training, but all of a sudden I'm trying to weight train because like people were telling me that's the way to beat perimenopause, but no one told me to build muscle mass before. Like that was never a conversation. No one told me what to expect. No one told me all the things to do in my 20s and 30s to protect myself in my 40s. And it makes me angry. And then what's even crazier is like when I did start going on some hormones, which, long story, I've had to go off of now because of other medical conditions and we're working it out. But I told my mom and she's like, oh, no, you can't be on that. You can't be on that. Because her generation was told that HRT is dangerous.
Yep.
The misinformation, the lack of conversation. And now you have all these women, thank God, like Erin, I call her from Runner's World because back when my husband worked there, she worked there. Now I guess she's freelance. She was at Women's Running for a while too. She just did, I think, an article for Runner's World or someone about running through menopause and all this stuff. And like, finally, there are women that are going through it, that are getting older, that are like, okay, I'm going to write about it. And we have this voice. But man, like, it just doesn't seem fair. Like,
No, I mean, it doesn't. And so I'm 39. So thankfully I did this course because it was after that course that I started taking weight training more seriously. But it's still now, again, like over the past year, thinning hair, I feel like I am always this close, like very, very close to having like a breakdown, like crying. And I'm like, I don't understand. Like I was even telling my friends this the other day and they're like, what, you cry? And I'm like, yes, me. I'm like, I don't know. I can't control it. Like I can't. And I find it really, really frustrating when I get those big emotions and I'm like, wait a minute. Like I can recognize within myself that emotional reaction is not even something that I'm used to, that was with like in alignment to how I normally proceed with the world. And now it's funny because with my family, we went to go see a Cirque du Soleil show, and it begins with the father dying. And my oldest daughter is sitting, it's rough. My oldest daughter is sitting next to me, staring at me because she's waiting to see if I'm going to cry. And I'm like, oh, these hormones, these emotions, I don't like, it's fine. It is what it is, but it's frustrating because I already felt like I went through puberty the first time. After each child was born, I felt like I went through puberty again. Like my body was foreign, emotions were foreign, like everything felt so foreign. And here I am feeling like that again. And then once I learned, hey, perimenopause is 10 to 15 years, I'm like, oh, so I could totally be there. And to your point about going to a doctor, I went to my doctor and it was a female doctor, and the female doctor totally disregarded it, told me I was still really young and that I didn't have to worry about that. And I said, okay, cool, thanks. Like I was so, it was so disheartening because it's not, I don't expect the doctor to be like, yes, this is what you have, but I would appreciate a doctor to just listen to me and empathize and validate, and then maybe be like, hey, okay, yeah, let's take a look into it. Or even if the doctor would have told me, go home, but keep a journal for the next 12 months of your moods and everything else and your appetite and weight or whatever other factors it is we should be looking at, then I would have left there feeling like, okay, cool. Like at least they're curious as well. So I find that whenever I hear women talking about perimenopause or menopause, particularly people talking about how they are staying active through it and how they're learning to love the way their bodies look and the way their bodies move through all of that, I'm like, can we give you a bullhorn so everyone can hear it? Because for some reason, this is totally off, but there was even this woman that I was following on Instagram. She just gave birth and she had a picture holding her baby next to her belly, like it was in the hospital. And her comment section was full of people asking why the belly hadn't deflated after birth. And I'm like, we're just doing an entire disservice to women.
Yeah. Well, because you have all those articles are like, look at how this person bounced back. Okay. I didn't bounce for like 12 weeks. It's 12 weeks. I mean, there's no bouncing after you either. I gave birth both ways, you know, C-section. There's no bouncing anywhere. Okay. Except for like your boobs are.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, come on. I mean, it's hard because I am a naturally thin person. And so people, when I say these things, they don't take me seriously because they'll be like, oh, well, that's easy for you. But like, no, my body is changing. My clothing does not fit. I'm always going to be thin here. That's just how I am. But like, I only wear stretchy pants now because I don't want to buy new jeans. You know, like nothing fits. I'm physically uncomfortable. My runs all suck. But I'm learning to just say like, okay, well, I'm not training for anything specific right now except for life. So I'm going to go on a run, and I feel like walking midway, I'm going to walk, and I'm not going to look at my pace, and I'm going to find a way to enjoy it in the way that I am. And I'm trying really hard to just not tell myself it's not fair. It's not fair, because it really doesn't seem fair that I took care of myself my entire life. And now all of a sudden my entire body is falling apart and I have no control over it anymore. But more women have to talk about it and be open about it. And I don't want my daughter to grow up and have this happen in her mid-40s where she's just in complete shock. You know, I don't want any of our daughters or friends or anything. I can't tell you how many women, like I said, I'm mid-40s, and a lot of women I'm friends with are, you know, mid-40s and whatnot. And all my friends, like, we're talking about it. And but no one, like in the beginning, you're like, oh yeah, I'm feeling this. I'm like, you're going through perimenopause. And they're like, you too? And I'm like, yeah, we're the same age. Like, we're going through it, you know, like it's okay. Because the thing is, like, when you're younger, like, look at that, you know, the Golden Girls, when they were going through it, they were like ancient looking. You know, well, we don't look like that anymore. We're not old. I'm only 45. I still have half my life to go, in my opinion, at least, you know, like I might have more to go, you know, like I want to be happy and healthy that entire time. So women, it's okay. We don't have to be invisible just because we're not getting our periods anymore. I mean, I still get it, but
well, yeah, it's like we don't have to be invisible because we're no longer the ideal of a birthing woman, right? Like, which I think is just so, and I love that you brought Golden Girls, because I see those images all the time where they're like women in their 50s back then, and then women in their 50s now. And it's just, it really cracks me up. But it kind of goes back to like that question I asked, even on a bigger scale of navigating this part of life when the path ahead of us isn't necessarily made for us, right? Like, you are carving the path with every step you take, with every post you make, everything you share within your business, within you personally. It's like, oh, wait, there's no one else who's done it this way, and I'm doing it this way. And hopefully with all that sharing, you do find your community. But I find it, again, I don't know if it's getting, yeah, I'm like, I think it's just because I know not everyone is like this. Like, I know not everyone thinks of this, because for me, I'm always like, is it because I'm getting older and I'm getting more aware and I'm noticing things more, because it's exhausting to be so aware and to notice things. But at the same time, it's an anger. Like, I feel like the root feeling for me is very much so anger of, why aren't we talking about these things? Why are we feeling like as women, we do have to be invisible, or we do have to suffer in silence, or we do have to give off the image of we're doing everything beautifully, wonderfully, and it's all so great. Like, I feel like I'm thinking back even to when my children were born. I remember my oldest daughter being born. She was a C-section. emergency C-section. That's not what I wanted, not what I planned, right? Like, hey, right.
Right.
And I remember afterwards confiding in some friends over how much I was struggling with feeling like a woman. Okay. Because I felt like my body failed me. And at that time, those friends told me, oh, but you have a healthy baby. You should be happy. And I felt incredibly dismissed because I'm like, yeah, I have a healthy baby and I am happy I have a healthy baby, but that doesn't, just because I had a baby doesn't take away from me.
Yeah. I'm still a person. I'm still valid.
And I feel like that's now this parent, I feel like life is just one big cycle. Like we kind of come back to that, where it's this phase now, it's that, okay, where do I fit in when I feel it all? When I feel, oh my goodness, sorry, I don't know what that was. When I feel grateful for my body and everything that it's doing, but then also I feel like confused by how it's changing, and then just angry at the lack of discussion or honesty with it, right? Like all it takes is one person like you to be like, yeah, hey, I'm going through it and it sucks. And you unlock something for other people.
Well, I mean, like, okay, so like, let's look at men, right? They can't get it up, they get a pill, right? All this money went to a pill for men not getting it up. Now, as a woman, I went to my doctor and said, I'm going through this, this, and this. She's like, oh, well, she was great in that she did do a full test of all my hormones. She gave me, I went on progesterone, I went on whatever, I don't even remember what I went on anymore. But like, that was it then, right? She just like stuck me on progesterone and like, see you next year. Now, what about the protocol? Like, why is there no protocol for monthly testing or follow-up testing? Like, why can't, as women, we get answers? Like men, their hormones don't change all the time. Our hormones change every 30 days. Like they're up and down, and we should have some kind of way to understand where we are within all that cycle at any given time, so that we can help ourselves and we can function better in this world. I mean, oh gosh, don't get me started. I mean, I'm already started, but I could go on and on. It drives me
No,
nuts.
this is a whole other podcast discussion.
Yeah, like I could go on and on.
Yeah,
But
but I was like, I cannot get through talking to you without asking about that, especially since you shared that it's like it's all you. Like yes, it's the business, but that business is still, it's a reflection of you, and it's a reflection of your stages of life and what you're celebrating and how you're helping the rest of us celebrate different stages of life as well. So I had to ask that because listen.
As you're saying this, because I just had a thought. Okay. So to all you women and men out there watching this, listening to this, whatever it is, I want you to take a look at these. I tried to point and I realized look at these two women right here. It doesn't look like there's anything wrong with us. Like, is there anything wrong with us? Because we're both going through this change in life that doesn't make us any less valid. So for all you women that are out there that are about to go through it, that are going through it, or aren't yet, but are looking at us like, oh gosh, I don't want to hear it because I'm not going through it yet. It's okay it's part of your life. It's part of everyone, who we are, who you will be eventually. And so don't invalidate these people in your life, and don't look at them and be like, oh, they're any less than. Because if you looked at me walking down the street without knowing what my body is going through, you wouldn't think I was any less than. So why, now that you have that information, would you think that I'm any less than? Right? So I don't know. I just had that thought. Like, let's just all be honest with what's going on in our lives and help each other instead of judging. Because, oh, don't get me started. I say
Yeah.
don't a lot. Wow.
I struck a nerve with that one question, but I was like, okay, you listen again, like I shared, for me, there's very much so there's a little root of anger within me, and I can feel it. I can feel that little root. It's got to be like in my uterus. Like it's just a little root of anger there that just grows. And and it's just, whenever I know for myself, whenever I can find another woman to talk about these things now, it's like, okay, but let's talk about it, because one, there's people ahead of us who are afraid to talk about it. And then there's people behind us who don't even know this is something to talk about, right? So it's like, here we can kind of bridge this gap as we do talk about it. So thank you for letting me ask that. I'm gonna pull us back. I'm gonna pull us back. And because I am cognizant of time. I'm always cognizant of time, but then we get caught up in talking. All right. So I'm going to ask you 3 more questions. Okay. So First question is, and don't get mad at me for this, which is your favorite product in your line of designs?
I'm not mad at you. I mean, I love them all. God, how tacky is that to say? But no, I really love the portrait collection. I take a picture that people send me and I engrave a portrait onto a piece of jewelry. And the reason I love it is because it really does allow you to celebrate so many different things or remember people. I've engraved, portraits. I actually just engraved a portrait for a young girl whose father just passed, and it's a picture of her and her father. I've engraved portraits of people's weddings. I've engraved, pet portraits. I don't know. It makes me feel honored that like people have let me into their lives in that way. And it trusts me to either commemorate or celebrate or just, take a point in their life and sort of make it live forever. So in that way. So I love engraving them. They're my favorite to engrave.
Okay. Yeah. I'm like, I know you have a bunch and I don't want it to feel like you have to pick a favorite child here. So
question. No kidding.
okay. All right. Second question, because I know you've got NYC, that expo that's coming up. That's something that's really big for Erica Sara Designs. But what is something for you as a person, as a woman, that's coming up that's really exciting for you?
Oh God, nothing. Oh my gosh, nothing. I know that sounds awful. I said to my husband last night, I was like, so I have a 6-year-old daughter and she's very, very needy and clingy right now. She's a pandemic baby through and through. And so I said to him last night, like my entire life exists to work all day and take care of her all night. So I don't know. Oh God, it sounds so pathetic, but there's nothing, but I guess New York City Marathon, like it is a professional, but that's been my dream for 13 years to be the official jewelry and have a booth at the expo. So I have nothing personal coming up, guys. I'm so lame.
Well, where are you with running right now? Just running to feel good and running.
Yeah, I'm running. So definitely this, perimenopause and all this other stuff going on in my life right now has definitely taken a toll on my running. I, for a while, actually stopped completely thinking that was going to help me, that maybe my body was too stressed out because of my cortisol level. So I'm going to stop running altogether. And it made me miserable and it didn't help my body at all. It made it worse. So, I'm back to like running 2 to 3 times a week. And then I love my Peloton. I love those workouts. So I do like that once or twice a week and then some strength training in there. But in terms of running, it really is, I would love next year to do a race with my husband, not with him because he would kick my butt. But there's a local 10K that just happened this weekend that we didn't get to sign up for, but I would love to do that, something like that. Get to the point where my kids are old enough where I can leave them with a babysitter during a race. And I know some of you are going to say you can leave them, but you haven't met my 6-year-old daughter who will not stay with a babysitter. Something we're working on. And I'd love to be able to do that. But yeah, running wise, at this point, I'm really enjoying not having a race to train for because there are so many other things in my life that are demanding so much of my time. I love the idea that I know I love running. And when I go out there, it's just for pure enjoyment and there's no pressure on me to run any certain distance or any certain time. It's just yesterday I was like, I have an hour, I'm gonna go for a run. And that felt really, really good. And that's it. Yeah, just I'd like to make jewelry for more races, but but I'd like to be at more races in that capacity. But we'll start where we are now. So
Hey, listen, you'll have me as a little ambassador when I run my Marine Corps marathon in October. So you've got us out there doing the work for you. And I just want to tell you, it will eventually get better when it comes to parenthood and to children. Some gets better, some gets hard. My youngest is 11 years old and she is still pretty attached to me. Like if my husband and I hug or try to give a kiss, she'll come in between us. And she's 11 and we can kind of talk to her about it, but just know that
Yeah.
Some days you thrive and some days you survive, and all days you're just getting through it. So you got this. I just wanted to tell you that you got it. All right. Final question for you is just let us know where we can follow you, where we can get more information about you. Just how do we connect with you beyond this discussion?
Okay, so I am Erica Sara, ERICASARA. My website is that.com. My Instagram is @that. And I think I'm on Threads, but I feel like that's just Twitter all over again. And I can't. I know it's not, but it is. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, Erica Sara, that's it. Google me and you'll find me. I'm out there. And if you like reality, I'm your girl. If you like fake stuff, definitely don't follow me. I don't know how to put on makeup and I rarely brush my hair. So that's it.
Listen, it's the priorities. It's what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing with your life and what are you prioritizing? And that's not it.
If I brush my teeth, I'm good. So
exactly. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this discussion. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.